not all at once. Fantastic. Absolutely. Yeah, I went to house party.
Come on, you got in here. Do you customize costumes?
Didn't have to tell you what I was wearing.
Why?
So I had I'm wearing a Donald Trump costume. It was horrible. But it's literally, it's like him on your back, you were up on your back. But I was like reaching over. Oh. It was anyway, that's not part of our ethics conversation. Some people thought it was funny. Some people. But anybody knows anything interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Today we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss negotiations. So what we'll do is this. The assignment is both being a buyer and a seller in a foreign country. So we have about 13 people. So get in groups of 3s and one group will have 4. But one group will be the seller, the other 3 will be the buyer. And the process in this assignment is to negotiate, look at some of the variables. To start the job. Anybody need an extra one? No. It's just relevant. It doesn't have to be anything. So you can essentially create your own. So you guys in the back, you can be, what do you want to be, the buyer or the seller?
It doesn't matter, like, I mean, just a question. Can you explain the currency thing? Can you explain the currency thing before we go? Like, what do you mean when you say like currency dollar 50,000 to 1 euro? What do you mean?
One for the seller, buyer, it's
Oh, so $1.
Yeah, $1 for 50,000. Okay, so let's do this. You guys are the buyers, so you have the advantage, right? Your dollar is way more powerful than theirs. You guys will be the sellers. Your seller will love it. But think of how you can convince them to even in between somewhere close, maybe their full price, or whatever the case may be. What tactics do you use? What are some things you look for? And then you guys will be, you guys will be the buyer, so who's the seller? You know, no. Because you know what?
It's not instrument.
You guys are all about making money. You know, so you guys be the seller. You're selling the share. You guys.
We're buying.
Yeah, you guys.
So, we're all 3 of us to sell?
Yeah, you guys are the group that's selling that jacket.
Okay. Alright.
Well, what tactic? You know, think of tactic and strategy. What are some of the things you're going to do?
Well, since it's a foreign company, so we want to see.
And also consider it is a foreign country, so you do have the advantage. You have a cultural advantage. Think of some things about that dynamic. A foreigner in your country. I mean, I think the best way to look at it seriously, just think of like you're in whatever country you guys, some of you may have come from. Think of like, hey, there's American company devices. What do we do to rip them up? You know, so think of your own experience and say like, man, I went to this country and I lost them before, and they were just totally just. Yeah. It's not supposed to be nice. Negotiation. Yeah, also, don't forget to level back yourself. Right? Don't forget the product that you're selling. And maybe something you can use to compare us. On both sides.
Tell those poor children.
We can just say like, since it's a foreign country, you will not find this in your home.
I'll give you guys your midterms and Article 3 back in the class. You know, you just email me before. So, yeah, this week, by the end of this week, I still have all that. So keep our I think that there's one more spot.
Confidence, like, that's all you can just say.
Yeah, you can.
Like in Dubai, I told you like once in Dubai, and they like he actually told me this thing is so special that only special people like you can learn. Like, this is the best shit.
Like also very brand.
So it's.
Like a forest. I mean, well, maybe just, find out. I thought we were there.
Well, we can still.
Any questions?
You could say we can have a science for like concerns that exist.
Yeah. But technically, it is the 28 minus 4. That's where it's at.
Maybe it's like,
Well, no, I'm saying. Here's the whole package, but like one of those jars.
yeah, like.
Like $5, give them.
Yeah, find out for like.
And actually only $2. The bacon this lady comes, she's wondering. But my boss always says, find something. They need something.
top of the bar. If I explain that.
And then, I mean, I was with an operating room. No, she again got. Oh, okay. They cook a lot of my food. Yeah. I heard. Especially when you're really eating. Yeah, I'm invited. It's like tomorrow. Yeah, no, no, no. Oh, so it's like home and stuff, and I'll be invited.
All right, who wants to read it off?
You're trying to buy another jacket from a street trader or a country whose local currency is valued at 50,000 to 1 of yours. Really like the jacket, which is a good fit, well made in style, but you think the trader is asking too much, what are some of the strategies that you can use well as a trader in your country?
Okay, so group one, you're in fire. What did you guys come up with?
We said like bargain, like in our mind has a maximum of what we're willing to pay. And then if, there's a deal that falls between that number or nothing, then, maybe it's worth it. And we also said buying in bulk, like, we could say like, oh, for that price I can get like 2 or 3 or, like, we saw it more of like a bigger perspective instead of like an individual buyer like buying for a company or something. And then we said like threat not to buy. Just to like, do you want some money or no money at all kind of thing. And then options, just keep your eyes open to see something else you like, something similar for a cheaper price.
So you're being very stern in your approach. Okay, so you're not gonna come in nice or in the middle. Set a bar. All right, what you guys come up with for selling the jacket?
I mean, the whole thing was, how to rip them off, so we just like, trying to find something really good with that. We thought that we just, explain how the jacket is, made of high quality materials and, authentic leather and everything. That's rare. I mean, like, they're in in a foreign country, so finding something like that, they might not just find it somewhere else, so we just explain that, it's really special. And she said like it's a must-have, like stuff like that. And just sugarcoat what you're saying to them.
Yeah.
And we just compliment them like once I was in Dubai and like I was buying something. It was a T-shirt. It was just stupidly expensive for some reason. So like the store told me like special stuff are for special people. So I bought that right away. I was like, I have to buy it. We thought that, we can just ask them to try it on, and just tell them, it looks good on you, and this kind of thing. Fake discounts, if it's 50,000, just say like, it's 70,000, but we'll give it to you for 50.
Mm-hmm.
And that might work. I mean, you guys do stuff for $1, like, really. Reassurance, we can say, you can return it if you don't like it. That's if they come back and everything, like, we might just close the store. So. We just, storytelling, like some sort of say, like, I happen to be, like, just be really, exactly, really pathetic, kind of. And find the need, just like, find something they need and just, offer them something similar to it or something like that.
Okay, so towards the end, you kind of work a little bit more with them then.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. So you see that obviously kind of deception, ambiguity, exaggeration. I mean, these happen every day, and these are vendors. And it happens in real legal businesses all the time. So the thing is try to figure out what is the best approach or strategy to use to verify that. If you want the jacket, you know, what are you really going to do to get that jacket at the price you exactly want? You guys, sellers.
We had the same first freeze, then we tried to just try to make up the jacket so it's like made by hand from inside leather, rare materials made.
Yeah, because you can't verify if it's made by hand, right? So you start throwing out information that people actually can't verify, and they just speculate.
Well, we were going at, like, it is made by hand because it's for child labor, you know, so it's gonna be cheaper too. So when it comes to the fee card, our excess profits are gonna go to the charge. So it's gonna be like, it's gonna go to child labor. So
Yeah.
driving out, we're driving back into child labor, so we can keep getting cheap gas.
Interesting. Very nice.
Okay.
So then we go over to the standard price, we're gonna say 50,000 is the standard price for a jacket.
But you know what? I mean, that's very true. So, I mean, we could gas and say, oh my God, you know, but I mean, to be quite honest, you can't control what the other
It's
party.
not illegal, it's what,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there are no rules, then you start throwing people's ethics and morals in there. You know.
so when you say it's go to a good cause to help child labor, they say, okay, that's helpful, but helping child labor is like funding more child labor. You know what I mean?
That's a very good strategy, especially for Americans. You know, they'll play on that, you know, going good. This is a good service I'm doing by buying this jacket. They're gonna give it to children.
Exactly. So then we, you know, said the solid part, help the business, help a person in need, and then partner with them. So, you know, we like your watch, we'll take your watch for the jacket.
So substitute other than cash.
You know, something we can sell. Wow.
Not bad. What you guys think?
Well, we've all like had suggestions to things happen to us, like we travel and stuff.
Mhm.
So as the buyer, we have the power because our currency is way more appreciated than theirs.
Mhm.
So knowing that, we would think about what we would actually pay for the jacket, and then we would bid way lower. And if we go past what we would actually pay, I would probably walk away. Yeah, so, and I mean, we could say it's rare and stuff, but if we're thinking about ourselves in the situation, it's not really that rare to us anymore,
Mhm.
because of how many local products we have. If you're a currency that's that far ahead of this one, the chances that you have local products in your market is kind of high. So knowing that, like, we would watch our body language and like, we would try and charm them if we had to, but like making sure you don't look overly interested, you don't look like you have to have it, like you're not a typical American, whatever stereotype, we're like, oh my God, chocolate,
Yeah.
it's so cool, because once you do that, like, your odds of running the price down decrease. And we've all said that, when you say like, I'll come back, maybe I'll think about it maybe later, it makes me seem more desperate, like, we've had where people like cut prices in half, or keep going, and you have more power, you can get under what you want.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because the chances of losing a sale are like way worse to them than the price sometimes. So I kind of think like that strategy really start to think or get what the actual price of that jacket is, because then we make it more desperate. And then we also make it seem as if you don't have enough money, like maybe you keep your money in different places on you, so if you actually can have like time to show them, which is not necessarily show you, but oh, I really don't have that much money because I only have this much right here. Do you have a money elsewhere?
Mhm.
That can work as well.
Yeah, actually, I think all of these work. I mean, this is relative to really where you're at. But thing is, maybe you use the advantage and the power of being unknown. For the foreigner, it's unknown to how intelligent you are, but he does know that you come from a country that's a very powerful currency, which normally means you're pretty educated, more well up than they are. So they may speculate and have a perception that you're very intelligent, and you should use that to your advantage if you come from a country that has a very powerful currency. On the other hand, the unknown of being in a foreign country, you just don't know. If you didn't really do, if you didn't talk to the people, the locals, you have no idea of what costs what you should buy, or anything that's misleading. So using that power of the unknown and just knowing about where you come from is really a strategy that you can kind of play on. But no, these are all really good. All really good. and you're right, I mean, a lot of foreign countries is about, they try. But I think our American strategy normally, like, say you wanna buy a car, you go on Craigslist, you meet some random Joe Schmo. What you do is you throw out the lowest number possible, right? He's gonna throw out what he put up there, you're gonna throw out something that's insulting. From there, you could reach somewhere with the next standard deviation of whatever's in the middle. You know, so I think that's more of the American approach. You got that solved. Then you start which kind of leads into what we'll discuss today, just talking about culture and negotiation. As a company, the first thing you're going to look at in the process is your goals. You're going to look at your corporate goals, then you'll look at your specific objective monetary goals. And this really leads to kind of building a team to negotiate on an international level. You develop your style after you observe what other country we're going to go into. You can adapt your style and cater specifically to that country based on their culture, whether they behave, perceive, perception, these types of things. I mean, some of the styles, they can be very asinine or they can be kind of in your favor. A lot of countries use deceptive styling. Their thing is to try to be as untruthful as possible. Therefore, you just get kind of convoluted and you just get all these complex thoughts about things, and you really can't form a really good opinion. You end up making bad decisions on that. While you guys mentioned, like, hey, we set a price, this is the lowest price that we go at, going into the door. That's an objective style. You already knew your objective. Your objective was, I'm not buying anything more than this. Or I'm not selling anything less than this. For some people, just develop trust. You develop people to like what you're doing, or who you are, what your product is, and what your service is based on that. And then people can say, you know what, this eases our negotiation process in the future because I'm able to trust you. You're not going to lie, you're going to tell me just really the standard truth. And people would much rather pay more for trust than pay less for working with a deceptive team, group, company, etc. So a lot of people, a lot of companies around the world that kind of build themselves on being trustworthy. This is very valuable, especially America doing the most business around the world. That's the most important thing to us. Because in our essence, we don't really trust foreigners. That's just who we are. So trust is a big thing. But there's all different types of stuff. You guys all have different styles. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of bi-directional. There's culture coming from your team, built on your culture, your company, and your team, and there's culture coming from, where you're going to be and who you're going to be negotiating with. Like I said, that trust level is big. That normally leads to long relationships. When there's no trust, it's very short. You're just doing a specific project or program or specific task. So I'll talk about some of the process of negotiating. There's some pretty interesting ones, to be honest. I'll get you guys opinions on the matter. What is the purpose of negotiating?
Meet your demands, needs, wants, make money.
Well, the seller wants to make a profit, the buyer wants to feel like they got their price.
Agreement?
Absolutely. Yes, it's coming to an agreement between two parties. You have your objective, your goals, someone else has their objective, their goals. It's not going to go your way. It's not going to go their way. It's going to go somewhere that you mutually agree on. So it's a complex dual relationship that you have to figure out when you communicate with try to figure out some more gestures, eye movement, and stuff like that. So the first aspect in negotiating around the world is preparation, basically. Look at the burials of the culture. You see what kind of context they communicate in. You see the political systems, all the different health things that we talked about. But for the most part, you look at how they interact with each other. And from there, you can pretty much grasp what you're able to get away with and what you're not. And then you come with a particular style to meet your outcome. Like I said, that style has to be adaptable because country to country. You come in hard some countries, in, say for Sweden, for example, you come in too hard in Sweden, they're not going to do this with you because they'll be quite afraid. And that fear is not allowed to go. You come to do that in Russia, you'll get somewhere. Number 2 is relationship building process. This really deals with just your initial interaction with them. Talking, getting to know one another, who you are, what is it you do, what is your specialty, what are your skills, how is it where you are. A lot of this deals with something they call non-task sounding, which works a lot around the world, but some places it don't, because this is basically just general begin talk. This is how you doing? Oh, nice facility here, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of that entry level talking, leading up to real discussion. Some places, it doesn't really work, because they want to get strictly business, and they actually get offended at that, because they don't think you're serious. So some, particularly like in Eastern Europe, Russia, they don't want too much of that. Germany too. So you have to get straight to business. But this does work. I say predominantly mostly around the world. Third process is to exchange task-related information. This is where you do your presentation. So you go, and you present what you're offering, what your objectives are. You make a position on it. And this is pretty much where the actual negotiation process starts. You want to make a very strong position, a strong case for what you're providing, or what you're offering. And both parties will do so. Number 4 is probably the most interesting, is the persuasion aspect. How do you persuade? How do you guys persuade people?
I prove their point.
Being valid? That's how you persuade people?
You gotta be likable, so that person feels trust. And then once you got that, have that, it's a lot.
So you're saying accurate information, you're saying even if it's inaccurate information, maybe somewhat, people like it, it's still, yeah, for sure.
I really just find that person.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
So it's just kind of subjective.
Yeah, and even like, with your friends, like, you want to persuade someone to do something that you like, I would go about it for test, and then I would have that. You know, it's like based on their personalities and their style, and like your relationship with that person.
Has anybody worked like retail? Like some, like quoting something? What do you use to persuade when you're in that
I don't know, I don't like to say it off the wire, but you kind of just have to like been in the truth with people, like, especially because I was a, like, clothing salesperson, so like, you kind of have to just like make them think that this is like the best offer that they can get, like, they can't get this anywhere else, and like, so it's kind of
So
telling
kind
them
of
what's good
like,
and then like whatever they're trying on, like, even though they not, which I don't think always do that, but like, you just kind of have to, like,
yeah, man, I mean, we find out it's been working business. I mean, how much throughout the day, you don't even tell them 100% truth.
and I think like personality helps too, like being personable and like being interested in your job and like not feeling off, and just like positivity and like I think just the way that you come off to other people can really help persuade them into doing something.
Same with us, I used to work at a Dollar a couple years ago.
Downtown, Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, and so, they kind of like encourage employees to wear clothing, so when people come shop, they see like the clothing on you and how it fits you and stuff. So I would always wear like a Dollar clothing, either like long sleeves or like, once wear like nice sweaters in there, and we would do like really good discounts, so like I wouldn't mind buying clothing. And so when customers would come, they would say like, oh my God, this is so cute, like, where'd you get it? And
Yeah.
oh, like, it's here, like, I'm sure you where's that? And like, oh.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of like positive affirmation. Like, okay, you work at an investment bank, you drive a Ferrari. People become believe that you actually do a really good job in helping them make more money. You pull up and you pull up, you know, off the bus. Come on, but then you get what I'm saying. People do it. I mean, think of, there's a lot of people working in the banking industry, maybe high level, and they don't make that much money. You know, they know how to sell the product, but they themselves maybe don't even know how to use the product for themselves. Same thing with, they say with psychologists. You know, they're great at helping others, they can't help themselves. But that's a good representation. You're using yourself to show the product, like, man, look, it's awesome. I can see it on me. I don't need to use it on the rack. I want to get some explode. But you guys probably also use a lot of this, right? You need some, hey, how you doing? What are you looking for? Oh, this is cute. Where'd you get that? You know, this kind of general introduction. Where you go to school? Blah, blah, blah. And that's how you get the likability and you just get a little bit of information and move on.
I work for a bank, so we see the same customers all the time, so what I use is I just like, you know, I know they're thinking stuff like that, but hey, you know, go to one of the best junior college and stuff like that. Open up a savings account.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're a student. You know how important it is. Yeah, so that's very important. I mean, some of, here, in the Far East, we're talking Japan, we're talking China, Korea, Philippines, Indonesia, stuff like that. They use something called umani, which is essentially a backdoor. What they do is, okay, you meet with the CEO, he gives you all the information. Or you meet with the team that the CEO sent out. You get all this information, you say, no, I'll think about it. From there, you contact someone else through the company to get a better deal. Because now you've got information. So the backdoor approach is kind of like a misleading thing, but you do really want to get all the information there. It gives you the advantage, you wait. It's like get all this information. It's like going to an interview knowing you don't want the job, but you might go through another person in order to get the salary higher than what was offered to you initially. So that's essentially what they call umani, and it's used in the Far East. Some of the really interesting tactics, once again, is built off, people in psychology. There really is built off psychology. It's creating stressful situations. let's say, so you're going in and you're having to negotiate. So you're having people come in to negotiate from another country. What are some of the things you could do? Some of the things they do is they actually turn the temperature down really low, make it super cold or super hot. And it puts you in stress, not really able to think clearly. Some of the other ways they make the lights really bright, glaring bright. So I mean, now honestly, these are real truthful tactics to use to make people stress under high stress. Under high stress, you make poor decisions. But this is used a lot, especially here in the United States. It's actually used a lot, even when you go to interviews and stuff like that. This to give somebody an edge. You know, if you come with me for an interview for a job, I can do these things. I can make it super cold and super bright, and it just puts me at an advantage. Yeah, maybe I'm not giving an interview, so I'm kind of nervous myself. And so I'm going to use whatever's to my advantage to make me in a better position than you. But this is what they do in negotiations. So try to create physiological and psychological stresses. This is a great tactic because you'll get people to sign contracts and they'll regret it. That's too late. Other things, and these all work. And I think, you know, you may think that, hey, this is all like misleading stuff, but they all work. What is predominantly used around the world? What you guys talked about, something jacket. Something like that. You could threaten to go somewhere else. This is what you do. You make promises that you probably can't keep, right? But your purpose is to secure the deal for now. That's your objective. I need a deal now. We need this. We could work out the other stuff later on. So you make promises you can't keep. You make threats. I'm going somewhere else. Oh, this is the worst offer I've ever gotten in my life. I don't know that this is a poor product. Everybody does it better than you guys, stuff like that. Yes.
I feel like also when you're on like a time frame, you tend to make decisions like quick because you have a time frame.
No, absolutely. Yeah, timing is yeah. Well, I mean, I put that there. So timing of discussions is like that. You talk about one thing, you immediately go to the next. You know, if they're bringing up something, you just go off and say something else. You basically just confuse it. There's a really good tactic that works. You interrupt. Someone wants to fast talker, interrupt. Keep interrupting. To make them change their mind. Rudeness. Being rude is very effective. Normally when you're rude, you think the person is rude for a reason. You can't be rude unless you're in authority or power. Why are you rude? Unless you actually have some power, some weight. But it's often to be psychological, BS, so to speak. You could throw, you want to maybe throw a person, it's not good to ever throw personal insults, ever. But you always throw insults to the company, the product, or service. So that one's very effective. So you be rude towards what they're offering, But never person, you can't say, you know, look like this, or you call it or something like that, you know, that. So yeah, seriously, welcome to the world of business. I mean, this is real, you know, this is very real. And this is what I guess the most successful people use. And people, you know, people go ahead and play ball with these types of things. So we talk about these things, irritations, create all type of irritations. Anybody else would think like another one? Like something you use to irritate somebody, physically or psychologically? Maybe background noise, right? You tell your office, hey, you know, we have this guy come in and just talk. Just you guys just go at it, you know? Put this guy in an uncomfortable situation. Because I mean, seriously, they use that. And I mean, it sounds quite unethical, but as long as you're working within the law, they use that if someone's a little older. I hate to say it, yeah, I don't want to say citizens, I don't like mistreatment, but I mean, these are tactics that do happen, is what I'm saying, not for you, but these are things that are used. You know, you create confusion. Especially if someone's not too apt on the subject matter, stuff like that. Places like South America. I'm not saying there are a lot of places their approach is to begin with false or misleading information. You start off with that. That's how they start off. And from there, if someone bites that, you're going to bite everything else. Right? So there are suppressing that action. So if someone immediately shuts you down on that, then you're like, okay, well, I might have to play ball here, you know? Yeah.
So, say you go into a negotiation and you walk in and they, like, turn the time to drive, how do you, as, like, the person coming in, deal with that then? To try to make sure that you don't get taken advantage of?
Number one, if you recognize it.
Okay.
So part of this goes both ways. You know, it's going both sides, understanding. It's basically understanding both sides. You're understanding what you guys can do. Number two, you already get knowledge on what they possibly could do.
Okay.
You know, like, hey, you know, these guys, their strategy is to like make it 30 degrees. So what we do, we'll wear coats, gloves. We'll wear a nice trench coat, we'll wear a leather gloves. We're going to sit down and have it. Don't come in with a cup of coffee and mess up. You bring other things. But hey, I make it super blurry light in here. You can bring some glasses translucent glasses that can turn on the light. The thing is, you have to be very strategic in these things because, once again, you're learning to research with others. And you have to apply certain measures to counteract what they possibly do, which is strategy. That's strategy. What is my enemy going to do? Therefore, let me do this to either check him, defeat him, or whatever. Any questions?
What about with like the South American thing, like false or misleading information, where in like the law, like is that like what it's on, like the law is that like if you're reading misleading information and then having to sign a contract and like the information doesn't match, like can someone like use that?
They could, and that's what I said. I mean, that doesn't normally go in the United States. We're a litigation country. We sue over anything. We could just say slander. You know, and I don't like what you call me in public. I think it's slander about $20 million. But no, in certain places where the litigation is not so high, yeah, you could totally get away with that. Totally. Another thing to consider is kind of these subtle behaviors. Things that are really small cues that you need to pick up. Or that you can use for advantage. You can use your tone of voice. Facial and body expressions. Eye contact. Your dress, like we just talked about. Going to a place where people don't like you. People don't like direct eye contact. I'm not gonna look at you. I think on average the average human being I think has a 3.5 second eye contact limit before they feel comfortable. You know, so normally it's scary, the stranger about 3.5 seconds before you kind of feel this staring. That type of thing. But if you know that information, you say, hey, I'm going to a culture where their context is they look down and you know, that's like stuff. You use it to your advantage. Stare directly. It works. Dress, you know. I mean, I don't think it's appropriate, but you could be a little fancy. You could be a little too fancy. That might be a great thing. That's a perception that you guys are the real deal. But now you're casual, people may not take you too serious. And it depends on the culture. Like a lot of places in Africa and also in the Middle East, you are a representation of what you do. You know, so if you come in and you dress to the nines, people are going to run with that. Body expressions, gestures, sitting at an angle, sitting straight forward, you know, turning your back too much, stuff like that. Tone of voice, you could change, you can adapt that, you can be loud, you can be low, depending on what they feel comfortable with. Germany, you can be supremely loud, and Sweden, you'd be very low, same monotone. That's what people feel comfortable with. That's what people will listen to. People stop listening if you're like completely opposite of what you're used to. This. I'm just not used to this. So they stop listening, therefore you can lose out. And last but not least, kind of what we talked about earlier, is like, what's your position when you walk in? Here in the United States, you have to insult people. You have to insult the dollar. Hey, the house is selling for $275,000. Oh, for you, 130. Like, wow. My goodness, this, and that. Like, I'll do 100. But then I'll say, all right, screw that guy. Then you get an email later that says, all right, how about 220? You know, maybe start negotiating, and you get what you want. So you have to insult. They did that in Russia and China, particularly in places like Scandinavia, that won't work. Just being rude is kind of that's pretty much it for today. Any other questions?
I also feel like when you have a second interview with you, when you walk into like a business or somewhere, like someone asks you with you, and you're like, yeah, it's pretty cool, but the other person's like, no, that's not good, and just don't do it. Like, I feel like you'll listen more to that person, or, I don't know, because I think it was like over the summer, me and my mom, my dad, and my little sister, we all went to go to a park. It was like some carnival festival or something. And they had like all these little stands and selling stuff, and so we walked up to this one stand, and it was like, you know, Chinese people, like they were selling like this special like knife cutters to cut like tomatoes or like to cut onions like really good. And my parents are like all about cooking, like my dad loves cooking, like they cooking together and stuff. So my dad's like, oh my God, this is gonna be great, like we can do this and let's take all this time instead of cutting everything and all this stuff. And I'm just, and I was like, oh my God, and I'm like, Dad, you guys don't need it, let's go. And then the guy was just like, the one who's selling it, like, caught my dad's attention, but I was like, no, like, forgive me. And I was like, Dad, you can expect $60 and something you never gonna use, like, it's not like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think second is very, very powerful. What do you guys think? What environment is the most persuasive to get people to agree with what you want? In a business family. Yeah, like, where do you take it? Absolutely. I wouldn't say a bar because not every country, uses alcohol, but to eat, yeah, it's always to eat. It's always to eat. That's pretty much anything in life. If you want to agree and negotiate anything with anybody, you take them out. That applies all over the entire world. You can go eat, people are comfortable, they feel relaxed, they get into a position of acceptance. You know, who you share your table with, you know, that's the right acceptance. Natural impression. What about any other personal experience you guys had when negotiating?
For summer, I went to Morocco, and me and two other girls kind of got separated from our group, which was like our first mistake. But anyway, I bought like this candle holder, which was, it came out to me like $3 US, like whatever. But then I went to another place that had the exact same candle holders, and they were selling me like 3 for $3. So like I ended up obviously buying more from there, and like to me, even though they got more money than it was worth, to me it was like worth the money. I'm just spending like $10 here for a candle holder. I got it for, $3 or $5. So like I got kind of scammed. Then I learned from that experience, and so then I was like more spared moving forward. So like then I ended up getting a lot more for money.
No, absolutely. I mean, you think of Whole Foods. Anybody ever shop at Whole Foods? No, yeah, come on, look at the price. Versus what Jewel. But people are you're willing to do anything for something that the company is offering that you like, right? Prices are different, but the environment is super cool. You feel like you're being healthy, which is a conscious thing. And if you can do that, people will continue to show up, regardless of the price. Because people automatically think being healthy is more expensive, therefore Whole Foods makes sense. The reality of it is just, people see things, just doesn't even really exist. Yeah. What else? Personal experiences, negotiating, where you're going to be negotiating a lot, right? Working real estate, commercial real estate. Going to be a future Donald Trump. What about even for jobs? I mean, you have to take some of this stuff even to the interview process. Listen, you're going to graduate and you're like, I'm going to take a job. That's probably what you're going to say. You know? Well, what salary do you desire? You know, once again, you may not want to insult in that regard. You don't have the power. You know, they have the power. So you don't have much choice. But you do may want to go high, right? Because they may offer 10% more than what they were going to get on paper. They say, you know what, man, you do have skills and I do come like you. How about we need you here? Okay. Somebody else say, hey, I'm only, same position, that person says, I'm making 10% less than you. Have that happen. The interview process is negotiation.
At my internship, I was able to sit in on a few interviews, and before we actually went into the interview, they gave us like the resume. But part of the application was a few questions, and the last question was like, what would your, preferable like salary be? And one guy was like, it's more about like the work and the community blah 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 with money to me, and then this other person was like straight up just put two numbers. So even going into the interview, you kind of have like an idea of what each person was about. So then that like was one of our tactics to really see who was a better fit.
No, I mean, it makes a whole
There's a
sense.
guy who said was like, oh, I prefer about the work and blah blah. He ended up we ended up offering him the position, and he accepted. We can negotiate it in person rather than like have numbers on paper before the interview. Face to face.
That's true. I mean, you have to, some people are hard workers, and that's great, you know, nothing wrong with that. Some people are smart workers. It's like, man, you don't even do it, I I still get the job done, right? So, with that being said, it doesn't normally do people who move up. Hard workers, kind of, since they work so hard, you already know they're gonna do their job, and they're gonna do every detail of the job. They're probably gonna stay there for a while. You know, get those people 30 years in the same position. Move there. But they show up on time for their right? They work hard. But the people who work smart start to see gaps in what the job description is. Like, man, what if we did this? When you start throwing out a creative process to your job description, like, okay, this is what my manager told me to do. This is what the job entails. I think it can be better. If you do that over time and you keep approaching it, I think this would be better. Why would we do this when we could eliminate that? Let's do this. Those are future managers. But if somebody say, I never question this process, I just want to get paid, I just want to show up. I think you'll be at that position for 30 years.
I was just gonna say, when I looked at applications, I was negotiable even to ask for a number. Because I like to like feel out the people when I do that. And I like to do my research like on the company and like what the average salaries are and what I can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to get that information, see what the industry offer, what normally that position would offer. And maybe if you even have a resume, you could put at the bottom where, you know, it says salary desired. I would put my economic environment. I wouldn't put it just like this, but you could word it however you want to put it. But my economic environment requires the average cost of rent in the city of Chicago is this. The average cost of insurance. Therefore, equals $65,000 a year for you to live this particular, a normal lifestyle. But then you're providing validity to why you're asking for this money. Like, hey, you know, I'm sorry, I have a $500 credit, my insurance, I have this, You know, that's kind of just what I need. People understand that, but you say, I just want $60,000. Like, okay. But if you explain it to them, they can see it because they're wrestling with their own stuff. They're like, I gotta find out. You know, then I say, all right, okay. We won't do that 5% less. Yeah. Making more money than what you mentioned. So negotiations are tactics are very pertinent. You can use it. All of this stuff you can use in all aspects of life. And just be adaptable. You know, don't. I understand we are who we are as a person, but if you're not able to adapt, to be aggressive, to be rigid, you know, be an introvert, and you don't like to, you know, do too much or get, you know, show yourself out there too much, you may have to, you know, if you want to. But then, I mean, you can keep yourself, you can keep the persona, but you have to have a business face, then you have your home face, and whatever other faces you have. Anything else? Any other questions, concerns? And anybody got any job prospects? No. I think it's McDonald's. There is.
You know why I moved?
No, I don't know.
Because they weren't having enough young people apply to suburbs. They're all in the plan to live in the city, so to get like a fresh, big, fresh mind. Not enough young people are applying to suburbs.
That's very interesting. Anybody ever work in food? Restaurant?
Yes. I worked at Buffalo.
I love Where do you work?
I worked at cooking school, so it's like borderline retail and food. So we
Okay.
got cooking classes.
You ever been to Chopping Block?
Yeah, we were their competitor,
That's good place.
Yeah. My wife used to teach at this. One merchandise market. Then there's another one.
That's great.
so yeah, I don't know people that work.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. I'll hand back, Sam's papers.
This one.
Fernando,
He's not. Okay.
now we're gonna Tara.
Yeah.
America. You guys, just, my partner, just come up and grab it. Tessa? Michelle Roman?